Stronger together. The holistic philosophy and group mantra the members of the ASEAN Economic and Cultural Alliance tout and celebrate as it welcomes coming together in peace and cooperation with all other nations on the planet. PTV's Julius Desamboron is at the scene of the action where ASEAN member nations welcome 3 reps from up north who come to participate in the events lined up for the auspicious occasion of Southeast Asia's emerging non-military federation turning 50.
Foreign Affairs Undersecretary for Policy Enrique Manalo led the meeting for the delegates of ASEAN Plus 3 senior officials meeting at Philippine International Convention Center in Pasay City. This focused on the cooperation of ASEAN countries with Japan, China, and South Korea.
The new work plan will be endorsed to the ASEAN Plus 3 foreign ministers meeting for adoption of the ministers. Once adopted, our ministers will endorse this work plan to the 20th ASEAN Plus 3 summit this November for notation by our leaders. Let me also acknowledge Japan's contribution of $900,000 to the APT Cooperation Fund. We intend to come up with other statements on the APT priorities, such as the APT Leaders' Statement on Food Security Cooperation, which at the moment is being discussed at the level of the Committee of Permanent Representatives in Jakarta.
The Japanese representative said they are still a partner of each country in line with the ASEAN 50 theme, partnering for change, engaging the world.
And Japan will make every effort to cooperate with other member countries to have a successful summit meeting. I would like to thank the Philippine government for great hospitality and kindness to all of us here in Manila today.
Korean representatives hopes the meeting next week will have a good result and lead into better and stronger ties.
It is my sincere hope that next week's ASEAN Plus 3 Foreign Ministers meeting will offer a valuable opportunity to reaffirm our cooperative spirit and pool our wisdom for a forward-looking development of ASEAN Plus 3 cooperation.
These countries also recognize the good manners and traits of the Filipinos, such as hospitality and kindness.
And I look forward to working with all of you to prepare for the upcoming APT Foreign Minister meetings and the summit in November, of course.
It was earlier announced by DFA spokesman Rob Bolivar that one topic included in the ASEAN Regional Forum was the ASEAN member states' cooperation and solution to violent extremism and terrorism. Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano will lead the 50th ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting, 18th APT Foreign Ministers meeting, and the 24th ARF plenary and retreat. Cayetano also led the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights in line with the ASEAN Human Protection and Rights Declaration. These meetings may give way to better programs for a good life and progress in all aspects of each ASEAN member states and its citizens. Julius Desamboron for The Nation.
Peace and stability induces economic development, and the Pacific Rim has been the scene of sustained and unprecedented growth over the last couple of decades. Hence, ASEAN is close to crafting an agreement to jointly declare all 10 territories of its member nations as a nuclear weapon-free zone to preserve such coveted status quo. PTV's correspondent Eunice Samonte tells us more on the ongoing discussions on the issue in this report.
Other than the diplomatic affairs discussions, the leaders and representatives of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, also gave emphasis to the one and most talked about topics in the region, involving nuclear weapons and testing. Earlier this afternoon, ASEAN leaders, headed by Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano, conducted a meeting to review the progress of the implementation of the Plan of Action to strengthen the implementation of the Southeast Asian Nuclear Weapon Free Zone Treaty 2013 to 2017 and consider proposals on what to do with the Plan of Action, which will expire at the end of 2017. They also discussed the way forward on the accession of the nuclear weapon states to the protocol of the CNWFC Treaty. This treaty zones includes the territory and the exclusive economic zones, or the EEZ, of the 10 member states. Under this treaty, the 10 member states also has an obligation not to join and not to develop, manufacture, or have control over the nuclear weapons. The ASEAN member states are also advised here not to take any action or to assist or encourage the manufacture or acquisition of any other nuclear explosive device by any state, and not to provide source or special fissionable materials or equipment to any non-nuclear weapon state. It can be recalled that in 1971, the idea of the Southeast Asian Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone Treaty was conceived by the original 5 members of the ASEAN after signing the draft for the Zone of Peace, Freedom and Neutrality, or ZOPFUN, which serves as the backbone of this Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone Treaty. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano led the discussions with the delegates.
And I am personally very happy to finally meet all of you in my capacity as Secretary of Foreign Affairs of the Philippines. We as a group have an opportunity to learn from the exchange. We have an opportunity to learn from the exchange of ideas of how we can further enhance our cooperation in implementing the Southeast Asian Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone Treaty. This is especially important as we remember that peace and stability in the region leads to progress and development for all.
It can be recalled that on 26 and 29 of April this year, when the Philippines hosted the 30th ASEAN Summit, the chairman's statement reiterated the ASEAN member states' commitment to preserving Southeast Asia as a region free of nuclear and other weapons of mass destruction. Eunice Monte for The Nation.
More delegates from member countries of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and their dialogue and trade partners arrived in Manila today for the ASEAN ministerial and other related meetings. Let's hear the full story from Alan Francisco.
All the representatives of ASEAN member countries are now in Manila for the 50th Foreign Ministers meeting and related meetings. ASEAN is composed of 10 member countries, including the Philippines. The first ministers and delegates to arrive were from Malaysia, Cambodia, Laos, Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, Singapore, and Myanmar. And just this evening, the Thai and Vietnamese delegates also arrived. Meanwhile, aside from ASEAN member countries, delegates from dialogue and trade partners of ASEAN are also attending the meetings. These include Sri Lanka, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and Turkey, among others. Representatives from United States, Japan, China, Republic of Korea, New Zealand, and some others are expected to arrive starting tomorrow until Monday. ASEAN member countries and their partners will be tackling important and timely issues facing the region. The ASEAN Committee said they will finalize some outcome documents for ASEAN's meetings with dialogue partners. Alan Francisco for The Nation.
Architectural and engineering students from a dozen schools nationwide gathered to use their creative energies and imagination to recreate in smaller perspective landmarks inside Manila's walled city using environment-friendly materials and colorful plastic toys and building pieces from a widely popular Scandinavian toy maker. The details of this friendly competition sponsored by the Tourism Department, and this report from Pauline Requesto.
Architecture, industrial design, and engineering students from 12 schools across the country will give life anew to one of Fort Santiago's historical buildings, the Baluarte de Santa Barbara. This is through the I Make History Fortress Architecture Scale Model Competition organized by the Department of Tourism and Private Sector. Student participants will recreate in scale model intramuros landmarks such as Palacio del Gobernador and Manila Cathedral using Lego bricks and eco-friendly materials.
The Department of Tourism hopes that more Filipinos, especially the young generation, would allude to giving importance to our cultural asset as significant tourism resources of this country.
Third-year architecture student Fibo is one of the participants in the competition, which he believes is a good venue for the youth to exhibit their creativity.
Sa Lego yung gamit namin, so hindi kami masyadong malilimit sa kung anong pwede namin gawin. Yun yung magiging challenge sa amin for us to know better and to know deeply kung bakit siya natayo, bakit ni-renovate nung pang 8th time.
Organizers of the competition say the contest is the very first of its kind in the world. Once finished, the students' outputs will be exhibited at the proposed I Make History Fortress Learning Center, a project for the adaptive reuse and restoration of the historical chamber. The Intramuros administration believes that the newest attraction will invite more tourists to visit the famous walled city.
We've added another destination point So roughly right now, the number of visitors that is coming to Intramuros is we're targeting by next year more than 1 million.
Part of DOT's National Tourism Development Plan is to create a tourism industry that will not only pave way to inclusive growth, but also give Filipinos a better appreciation to our culture and heritage. Pauline Recuesto for The Nation.
In news overseas, as U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson embarks on his first official trip to Southeast Asia this week, the United States continues to call for a legally binding mechanism to prevent conflicting territorial claims in the South China Sea from erupting into violent confrontations. Tillerson will also seek greater cooperation from regional allies in isolating North Korea. This report.
After a stern warning from China, Vietnam called off the permission to an energy company to drill for gas in the South China Sea. It is the latest chapter in the ongoing dispute over the world's most contested waterway that is believed to be rich in resources. Foreign ministers from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations are expected to endorse the framework of a code of conduct on the South China Sea as they gather in Manila. While the framework commits to cooperation over confrontation, it is also seen as bending to China's influence since it is not legally binding. The U.S. will continue to press for a dispute resolution mechanism and uphold freedom of navigation.
Destabilizing actions such as Chinese land reclamation, construction, and militarization of disputed features makes it harder for the region to resolve these disagreements peacefully.
Secretary of State Rex Tillerson wants to work with China on differences without leading to open conflict. Among them is stepping up pressure against North Korea.
There is no future where North Korea holds nuclear weapons or the ability to deliver those nuclear weapons to anyone in the region, much less to the homeland. In doing so, we've sought to partner with China. China does account for 90% of economic activity with North Korea.
Tillerson will be walking a fine line with the Southeast Asian bloc, seeking assurances from them to isolate Pyongyang without creating a perception that North Korea overshadows their concerns in the South China Sea.
And the fact is that North Korea matters a lot less for Malaysia or Vietnam or the Philippines than South China Sea does, which is right at their front door.
Others warn regional allies are starting to believe they may not get practical support from Washington in the South China Sea disputes. Bill Hayton from Chatham House spoke via Skype.
They felt that the Trump administration couldn't be relied upon to protect Vietnam's interests in such a confrontation. So I suppose this is a sign that governments in Southeast Asia are concerned that the Trump administration isn't interested in defending their interests.
Besides maritime security and denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, regional counterterrorism is said to be also high on the ASEAN agenda.
According to the Pacific Institute, more than 2 million tons of all kinds of waste are poured into the world's waters every day. Scientists have gotten good at detecting it, but not so good at finding where it's coming from. Swiss researchers are working on a solution to that problem. A swimming robot that can patrol waterways 24/7 and locate pollution at its source. VOA's Kevin Enoch's reports.
This is the EnviroBot. Swiss researchers are taking it on a test drive in an alpine lake. It looks like a water snake, but it's actually a collection of little segments, all doing different jobs.
So the robot has many different modules, plus the head. So each modules are identical, and they have a motor so that the joint can oscillate. Then there is the head, which coordinates all the movements of these different modules. So you can have a pattern which propels the whole robot forward.
Its job, when fully developed, will be to patrol waterways on its own, looking for pollution.
So instead of having a measurement station somewhere, or instead of going out and taking a sample and bringing it back to the lab, the robot will actually go out and measure a number of water quality parameters in real time.
Each snaky segment or module is unique, so the EnviroBot can conduct all kinds of different water tests at the same time.
Like we have a module here that measures very general water quality parameters, temperature, conductivity, for example. We also have one for pH and for oxygen levels. Those are very general parameters that say a water quality is good or not.
Other modules carry bacteria, fish cells, even tiny water fleas that react to toxins in the water. The researchers' ultimate goal is to create a full-time autonomous pollution-sniffing robot.
What we also like to achieve is that the robot by itself can find the source of a pollution, and in that way it would have to be able to measure locally and then decide where to go next, and that is obviously a very challenging project.
Challenging indeed, but given the amount of waste that is being dumped or pumped into the world's waterways, a very worthy goal.
Two-time Southeast Asian Games champion Christopher Ulbok is determined to keep his title in the men's 3,000-meter steeplechase event at the 2017 Kuala Lumpur SEA Games this month. The full report from Arian Malyare.
Christopher Ulbok is confident of bagging his third gold medal in the men's 3,000 meters steeplechase event in the upcoming 29 Southeast Asian Games. After recovering from his right leg injury and layoff for several months, Ulbok was only able to register 9 minutes and 9.16 seconds in this year's national time trial, which is slower than his gold medal finish of 8 minutes and 59.7 seconds in the Singapore SEA Games in 2015. But the 26-year-old runner remains confident that he will be able to defend his crown against runners from Vietnam, Indonesia, and host Malaysia. Meanwhile, host Malaysia's runner Ahmad Luth Hamizan, who finished 4th in the 2015 SEA Games, is now training in Baguio City.
Mahalaga to sa akin kasi first of all, pride ko rin to eh. Tapos pakita ko rin sa buong Pilipinas na kaya ko pa. Buo ang loob ko ngayon eh. If ever na hindi para sa akin yung siyempre isa lang naman ang goal ng mga athletes eh. To get the gold.
Ulbok trusts in the training program of Coach Rene Herrera. He says he is being motivated by the former 5-time SEA Games steeplechase champion.
Techniques namin ngayon is paano lumakas yung pace, paano mauna, tsaka get the target talaga yung gold. As long as kaya kong sundan yung yapak niya, susundan ko talaga. Kailangan hindi ko siya ma-down. Ganun yung nasa utak ko. And ginagawa ko naman lahat na makakaya ko.
The men's steeplechase event of the 29 SEA Games will be held on August 26. Arian Malyare for The Nation.
Professional skateboarder Anthony Frank Tony Hawk is known as the Birdman. He's considered as one of the most successful and influential pioneers of modern vertical skateboarding. In 2002, he also did the Boom Boom Hawk Jam, an extreme sports exhibition and tour that was launched in Las Vegas. Aside from being famous in skateboarding, he also owns the skateboard company Birdhouse. He was also featured in some movies and video games. Hawk was also engaged in some philanthropic activities with his Tony Hawk Foundation, helping build skate parks in underprivileged areas. He was dubbed as one of the most influential skateboarders of all time in 2014.
President Rodrigo Duterte signs into law a bill providing free tuition for higher education in state universities and colleges. The Department of Budget and Management says the free tuition in SUCs will be implemented in academic year 2018 to 2019. Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano sees a progressive and peaceful future for ASEAN. The government gears up to rebuild Marawi City and other Marawi conflict-affected communities through an interagency task force called Task Force Bangon Marawi.
And those were the most significant stories for the day. I am Richmond Cruz with Charms Espina.
And this is News Headlines.